Alright everyone, welcome to this edition of Ultimate Questions, the Q&A segment where I answer your NFL or NBA based questions every Tuesday and sometimes Friday. Now look, I got a lot of great questions surrounding the NFL to get to today, and before we hop into it all, I just want to let you guys know that if you want to get your question on the show, all you have to do is go to my community tab section either Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday before I post the video answering the questions and submit your ultimate question under the community post that tells you to submit your ultimate question for the specific Tuesday date that you want to get your question on the show. But without further ado, let's hop into it all, people. Let's get into this first question. Alright, this first question comes from my guy Pee-wee's Brownie Elf, and he asks, will the Raiders be one of those teams that make the playoffs after an 0-3 start? Now look, I think this is a good question here, but look, at the start of the year, I didn't even have the Raiders making the playoffs. So the fact that they started 0-3 just gives me even more of a reason not to believe that they are going to make the playoffs. There are two things that I need to point out about the Las Vegas Raiders. One, it's that they're not clutch. This team in the first 3 games have been in close games and they have won none of them. In that Chargers game, they had a chance to go down the field with the touchdown and win the game. They did not do it. That offensive line crumbled. That passing game was not really working. In the second game versus the Cardinals, we know what happened. They were up by 20. They still didn't win the game. They lost in overtime. And then in this game versus the Titans, they got the touchdown. They struggled to get downfield when getting that touchdown. And at the end of the game, they weren't able to get that 2-point conversion to really allow them to have a chance to win the game. So this team is not clutch. But also, they just don't play complementary football. This offensive line, which is one of the worst in the league right now, is not helping out Derek Carr. These receivers who have been dropping passes are not helping out Derek Carr. But when I look at Derek Carr, he's also making some bad decisions. He's not helping out this passing game. And then Josh McDaniels, look, his play calling has been questionable. So this offense, parts on this offense aren't helping out parts on the offense. The same thing for the defense. This secondary, these linebackers in coverage have looked terrible. They're one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL right now. It is not giving the pass rush, which is struggling right now, a lot of time to get to the quarterback. So this team just does not play complementary football. While this team is talented, and I believe that this pass game could potentially come on in the middle of the season, same thing for the pass rush. This secondary, this offensive line, I have no faith in it. Just because we knew they could be issues coming into this year. And look, they also just don't have the talent that other players on this team have. In this secondary and this offensive line, which I do not foresee getting better, they're going to hold back this team. When I look at this offensive line and this secondary and their liabilities, they totally, absolutely put a cap on this team's potential. That offensive line is not giving the run game the stability it needs to be able to take pressure off the pass game. And that offensive line is not helping the pass game really have time to really develop some plays downfield or even have time to make the more simpler plays. And then this pass rush is just not generating a lot of pressure right now. Josh McDaniels, I just don't know what to think of his play calling so far. I'm not very impressed with it, people. There's just so much wrong with this Raiders team, and there are two things that I just do not foresee getting fixed, and there are two things that I really think will hold this team back. But you guys tell me what you think about that all down in the comment section below. Let's get on with this next question. Alright, this question comes from NFL Paradise. Shout out to you, man. But they ask, do the Lions have a top 7 offense in the NFL? Hey, some people may take this as a hot take, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say it here. I think the Lions have looked like a top 7 offense through the first 3 weeks of this NFL season. Now, will they sustain that success? That is a question for another day. But they have definitely given me hope. They have given this whole league hope, Lions fans hope, that they can sustain that success. And everyone, there are 2 big reasons why I think the Lions can sustain their success as an offense this year. And that first one is that they're mega explosive. This season, through the first 3 weeks of this 2022 NFL season, the Lions have had the most explosive plays out of any NFL team through the first 3 weeks. And even though they are 2-1, this stat tells you all you need to know about why you should be optimistic about this Lions offense and why they have looked like a top 7 offense through the first 3 weeks of this season and why we have hope that they can continue this success. And everyone, the second reason why I think this offense looks like a top 7 offense right now is because of that run game. DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams are looking like one of the best running back duos in the NFL right now. Statistically, as a total rushing offense, they rank 3rd in the league behind the Browns and the Bears. And I think right now, Jared Goff is to some extent doing his job. He's not doing a lot of turning the ball over, although he does have 2 interceptions, but he has done a lot of scoring the ball. He has been hitting his receivers. Amon-Ra St. Brown has looked incredible. DJ Chark has made some plays. So has TJ Hawkinson. This offense has found some balance through the first 3 weeks of the season. And look, will they sustain this success like I said at the beginning of this? That's the question. Will they last this top 7 offense kind of run through the season? I don't know. But through the 3 weeks that we've seen so far, through the first 3 weeks, going based off of that, they look like a top 7 offense in the NFL right now, people. But will they sustain that success? That's a question for another day, like I said. But with the explosiveness, the run game, and the kind of balance they have on offense right now, I'm very impressed. And I think, like I said, through the first 3 weeks, I'll say it again because I don't want anyone to misconstrue what I'm saying here. Through the first 3 weeks, they look like a top 7 offense in the NFL. So great question here by NFL Paradise. Let's move on to the next question. This next question comes from Jackson's8, and they ask, are the Dolphins the real deal? Yeah, the 3-0 Miami Dolphins are the real deal. When I look at this passing game, when I look what this just team as a whole has done, beating the Ravens, beating Josh Allen and the Bills, they have proven to me that they can beat some of the best. Like we always say, to be one of the best, you got to beat some of the best. To be the best, you got to beat the best. And that's what the Dolphins have done. When I look at some of the main components of why they won this passing game, we saw them get into a shootout with Lamar Jackson and end up winning the shootout. We saw Tua and Tyreek and Jalen Waddle absolutely ball out in that game. We saw them win versus the Bills and give Josh Allen a hard time, and see Tua, Tyreek, and Jalen Waddle do what they need to at the end of that game. And I also got to give credit to Gesicki, Chase Edmonds. These guys are doing their job, and what I recognize the most about this Dolphins team is that they can duel with some of the best passing games in the NFL. They proved to me in that Ravens game that they can get into a shootout, and they proved to me in that Bills game that they can disrupt the opposing quarterback, and that their pass game is going to be able to do what it needs to do to get the job done and win the game, everybody. This pass game is showing me that they can duel with some of the best in the league, and that's why I think they're atop some of the contenders in the AFC. I think they will make the playoffs. I didn't have them making it at the beginning of this year, but after what I've seen, I think they will. And this defense versus Josh Allen, the Bills, I think it played well. I really do think it played well. Same thing in that game versus the Patriots, where they only held the Patriots to 7 points, people. I love what I'm seeing from the Dolphins, and with what their passing game with Tua, Tyreek, and Jalen Waddle have been able to do, with Mike McDaniels and what he's doing as head coach there, and their defense doing what they did versus Josh Allen, this Dolphins team is the real deal, and I expect them to keep going. Keep on keeping on. Let's get on to this next question. This next question comes from Sheila A, who asks, whose performance over the past 3 weeks has been the most underrated? Look, 2 names come to my mind, and both of those guys are on the screen. One, it's Amari Cooper. The dude had 101 yards in week 2 and 101 yards in week 3 and had a touchdown in both of those games. The dude's performances are just flying way under the radar. He has been an incredible security blanket for Jacoby Brissett. He has made him a better passer, and he has really contributed to the success of this Browns passing offense so far. But not many people predicted that this Browns offense would have as much success as they are having in these first 3 weeks of the season. But because of Amari Cooper, I think they're having a lot of that success, and I think he's been a great help to Jacoby Brissett and to the other receivers in this Browns offense. He's been an incredible security blanket for his quarterback. And then it's Alex Highsmith of the Pittsburgh Steelers. The dude has stepped up in TJ Watt's absence. He is 3rd in the league right now in pressures, with 8 pressures in the league. And right now he leads the league in sacks. He had 1.5 sacks versus the Browns on Thursday Night Football. I honestly think the dude is really on the come up right now. I really thought he was going to really explode and really break out in 2021. Didn't really happen, but it looks like we are really about to get a real breakout season from Alex Highsmith here in 2022. Love what he's been doing. He's one of the league leaders in sacks right now, 4.5 sacks through the first 3 weeks of the season, 8 pressures, which is tied for third in the NFL. Love what I'm seeing from Alex Highsmith and how he is stepping up out of TJ Watt's absence, everybody. So those are really the 2 most underrated players so far that I think need more shine through the first 3 weeks of this NFL season. This question comes from TWT, and they ask who have been the biggest frauds through the first 3 weeks here in the NFL season. Now, I could throw the Raiders out there, just starting off 0-3. I could throw the Broncos out there. There's some other teams that I could throw out there. The Saints are certainly one of those teams that I could throw out there. But it's certainly by far the Bengals. Look, I know the Super Bowl slump is a thing, but when you look at the Bengals and how good their offense was last year, just knowing their offensive line was still bad regardless of how good they were last year, we thought they all upgraded that offensive line, but they didn't. This team's offensive line failed the expectations that we had for them through these first 3 weeks of the year. This offense is not nearly as explosive. This defense has not looked clutch. This team has had a favorable schedule and is still somehow 1-2 and didn't beat the 1-2 Steelers and did not beat the Cowboys with Cooper Rush. And then Joe Burrow hasn't looked the best. He threw 4 interceptions in week 1. Jamar Chase could look better right now. This team has looked like a bunch of frauds at a lot of places. I will applaud them for their win versus the Jets, but there was no denying that this team needs to be better. We thought this team and this offense was going to be more explosive because of that new offensive line. It was the total opposite. Last year, look, they were still explosive without a good offensive line, but this year, they once again don't have an offensive line when we thought they fixed it, and they're also not nearly as explosive as they were last year, people. Now, while these things could change, I don't have tons of faith that it will. It can, but through the first 3 weeks, what I'm talking about here is the first 3 weeks, the Bengals, a team a lot of people had a lot of aspirations for coming into this year, have certainly looked like the biggest fraud here in the NFL through the first 3 weeks with all the expectations we had for them, people. But other than that, this has been Malik Hicks, aka the Ranker of the Ultimate Sports TV, signing off. Peace out, and I'll see you on the other side.